Hello, you're watching RTD's English News Edition. Thank you for joining us. Here are tonight's major stories. Organization of the National Consultation Day on Migration Issues by the Interior Minister. And on the international news, Germany goes to the polls in general elections. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom on the occasion of the 72nd session of the General Assembly of the United Nations. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Djibouti, Mr. Mohamed Ali Yusuf, has made a speech. Here it is.
Let me at the outset to congratulate you as a result of your elections as presidents of the 72 sessions of this General Assembly. I take this opportunity to express the hope that under your leadership this General Assembly will benefit from your diplomatic experience as well as your dedication. I would like to assure you of the full support of my country in your efforts. I also take this opportunity to pay tribute to Mr. Peter Thompson, who preceded you to this position. I take this opportunity to reiterate our warm congratulations to Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, for his brilliant election, while wishing him our best wishes for success in this heavy mission he is entrusted with. The world, in spite of major progress made and of new opportunities, is facing multiple challenges. The economic and financial context remain of concern. New threats emerge, conflict change nature, certain crises are deepened and become more complex. The climate change, even if it is sometimes gives to scientific controversies today, is unquestionably real and product in change of a large-scale disasters. I take this opportunity to express our sympathy and solidarity to the affected communities in the United States, in Mexico, and in the Caribbean. All these challenges underline a crucial importance of a collective action sustained and resolved. In order to meet these challenges, we must mobilize all the necessary means. The Agenda 2030 for Humanity is an ambitious program, while at the same time a program for the eradication of poverty and the preservation of the planet. In addition, the Paris Agreement and the Declaration of Sendai, the Program of Actions of Addis Ababa, constitute a wide range of instruments aimed at strengthening the 2030 agenda. They also committed the countries to adopt policies framework to change production and consumption patterns, as well as strategies for coping with climate change and the risk of disasters. In view of the effective implementations and full of the 2030 agenda for the developments, Djibouti is committed to undertake all the necessary measures to realize it.
The spokesman of the government has then indicated the certain regional and international situation of some countries, such as crises and many more, and then insisted that these issues need a priority attention from the members of the United Nations. Let's listen to him.
A lack of peace constitutes a major obstacle to economic development. The human cost of conflict is enormous, leads to travel, massive forces, famine, the development of communicable diseases, situations of insecurity, acute food and rapid deterioration of respect for the human rights. Our organizations more than ever has a great role to play in the prevention of conflict and the peaceful settlements of different places. In this regard, we welcome the emphasis placed by the Secretary General on the preventions and the reforms undertaken to restructure the architecture of peace and security. The emergence of extremist terrorism group posing of act of unprecedented violence is a new challenge. By disseminating an ideology of intolerance and hatred which explicitly call for the annihilations of the other, they undermine the cohesion of our society and pose a threat to the peace and the international security. This risk therefore call for coordination of our effort in the fight against terrorism. Djibouti welcomed the creation of a department responsible for coordinating actions of the Organization of the United Nations in the fight against terrorism and violent extremism. Djibouti welcomed a center of excellence in the fight against violence and extremism in the countries of IGAD, designed as a common platform that will support the strengthening of the regional coordination, the productions of analyses, and finally the preparation of a plan action to counter the extremist rhetoric mediated through social networks. Mr. President, I would like at this stage to express our view on a certain situation, regional and international organizations that require the priority attention of the members of the United Nations concerning Somalia. Djibouti welcomes the recent political developments in Somalia and the dynamic created by the election of Mr. Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed in February of this year in the formations of a new government headed by the Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khairé. We welcome this strategy put in place to engage in tax-economic reform activities to mobilize indigenous resources. We emphasize, however, the importance of increased support in favor of mobilizing adequate funding support for this program of development. Concerning South Sudan, we remain preoccupied by the slow pace of the implementations of the agreement of August 2015 on the regulations of the Republic of South Sudan. The players involved in this crisis should resolve to the idea that there can be no military solutions to the conflict. In this regard, we support the decisions taken by the 21 extraordinary summits IGAD states devoted to the situations of South Sudan, and reiterate a genuine national dialogue, transparent, credible for the return of a lasting peace. In the case of Yemen, the Republic of Djibouti remains extremely concerned by the triple tragedy which strikes Yemen. We have underlined the senior officials of the United Nations before the Security Council. Famine, epidemic, cholera, without unprecedented and political impasse that hinder any progress toward peace and security are on their way to destroy this country. We call upon all parties to a return to the negotiation table. In addition, Djibouti is afflicted by the fate of Muslim minority of Rohingyas, the Rakhine region in Myanmar, and is gravely concerned by the military brutality of which civilian populations are the targets. Despite the commitment made, the crimes against this community has never wavered. We support the conclusions of the final report of the Commission led by the former Secretary General of the United Nations and call Myanmar to fully engage in order to implement the recommendations which it feels contain. Finally, Djibouti remains alarmed by the belligerent attitude dangerously provocative of North Korea. It is a situation which must mobilize vigilant attention of the member states of the United Nations. It called upon North Korea to engage in a constructive dialogue moving toward the result with a view to a satisfactory solution to the crisis.
A day of national consultation on the importance of migration was our major story tonight. Issues organized by the International Organization for Migration, IOM, is held today at the Institute of Diplomatic Studies. Indeed, the question of migration is becoming over the years a global issue. All of the countries are directly or indirectly affected by this phenomenon, and the tragedies linked to the migration take a troubling proportion each day that passes. It is in this case that the 19th September 2016, the General Assembly of the United Nations organized a high-level summit in New York, where all of the states met at the headquarters of the United Nations in order to improve international cooperation in good governance, as well as issues of migration and refugees. To this fact, the President of the Republic of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh, is committed in 2016 before the General Assembly of the United Nations to improve the living conditions of the refugees and brings the contribution of his country with a view to ensure a migration safe, orderly and regular, calling that our country has to sign a memorandum on the education of the children of the shelters. The ultimate objective of this meeting is to put in place a national strategy on migration which honors the commitments of our country, and this day of national consultation on the contributions of Djibouti to the World Pact on Migration were present by the Minister of Interior Hassan Omar Mohamed, the Minister for Women and the Family, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, and the advisors to the ministers, the representative of the IOM mission to Djibouti, the representative of UNDP, the Secretary General of different institutions, the Prefect of regions, and the top responsible for the national police. And the Minister of the Interior, Hassan Omar Mohamed, has shared his thoughts on the migration issue and the fact that Djibouti is at the forefront to support the refugees. Let's recall that the objective is to establish a national strategy on migration, how to cope with and find solutions. In the framework of the International Day of Peace, the Ministry of National Education has organized this afternoon a popular march to celebrate this day. This walk has seen the participation of several officials of the government, with at their head the Minister of Education, surrounded by the Minister of Habitat and the Mayor of the city of Djibouti. The walk has started at the Palace of the People and ended at the entrance of the poor to the road to Venice. In addition to the official educational family, the Association of Disabled and several associations of civil society participated in the walk. The International Day of Peace is celebrating in the war, and the theme of the year is entitled Together for Peace, Respect, Dignity and Security for All. The Djiboutian population come from all corners of the city to participate in this day, which took place in a good atmosphere. The Mayor of Djibouti, Ms. Fatouma Ousmane Awale, took the floor to thank all the people mobilized for this march. In addition to the representative of the civil society that Djibouti is strongly mobilized, several members of the government, including the Minister of Habitat, Mr. Musa Mohamed Ahmed, participated in the walk of the peace. In front of the mosque, the Minister of the Habitat took the floor to speak about the importance of peace. The Walk of Peace, organized by the Ministry of Education this afternoon, has seen a strong participation of the civil society and of the Djiboutian population. The Minister of Education, Mustafa Mohamed, said loud and clear that the preservation of peace is the matter of everyone in the world. In our region, our country has become a peaceful place in the middle of a region in conflict, and that peace must be preserved, he has concluded. A road accident took place this afternoon in front of the National Infirmary on the road near the airport. There are 12 injured and 3 in critical condition, according to the information from the Civil Protection. The accident took place between a minibus, a Land Cruiser car and a truck in front of the National Infirmary, and arrived quickly on the place. The relief of the Civil Protection have focused first aid and have evacuated the wounded to the emergency ward of the hospital Peltier. Citizenship and social cohesion, save the values, is part of the priorities of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, in collaboration with the Association of Young International Chamber, GCI, launched yesterday in all community centers of the capital the week of the reflection on the Republican values around the role of youth and women. The foundation, which had for objective to identify a group reflection likely to guarantee the sustainability of Republican values such as citizenship, the civility, unity, tolerance, and also the social cohesion. To see that these foundations have attracted the excitement of the target audience, composed of young people who have not lack of their enthusiasm for such ideals in their eyes as a catalyst which gives sense to citizenship. We're also open to debate around the ways and means to protect our young generations against the delinquency and how to urge to take adequate measures to combat this in order to contribute to the socio-economic of the development. Faithful to their speaking, the participants have highlighted that succeeding in a transition measure to eradicate the risk of juvenile delinquency in order to instill in young people the Republican values is a challenge that requires much: the conviction, perseverance, the love, and the hope of a better tomorrow. United in patriots, it is thus that we can meet these challenges. And on the news outside our borders, Germans headed to the polls on Sunday for parliamentary elections that determine the new government. Unlike France and the Netherlands, where people worry about the potential political, some 61.5 million people are eligible to cast their ballots in the long-awaited election in which Chancellor Angela Merkel Conservative Christian Democratic Union CDU, along with its Bavarian sister party, the Christian Social Union CSU, is projected to win the large share of votes. And Angela Merkel walks into her fourth term as the Chancellor of Germany after the elections. Her party, the Christian Democrats, picked up 32.5% of the votes in Sunday's election, according to the fourth exit polls issued at 6 p.m. German local time. The Social Democrats, Merkel's closest challenger, were a distant 20%. Those numbers were lower than the last polls, which projected 36% pulled the lever for the CDU and 22% for the SPD. The death toll in this week's massive earthquake that toppled buildings in Mexico City and elsewhere rose to at least 305. The country's National Civil Defense Coordinator said as rescuers continued to look for those trapped in the rubble. Luis Felipe Puente, the coordinator of National Civil Defense, said Saturday on Twitter that more than half of those killed, 167 people, died in Mexico City. Several people were wounded alive on Thursday in Mexico City, Colonia Opera neighborhood. Cheers erupted from more than 1,000 volunteers and officials after they pulled a survivor from the rubble of a textile factory Thursday. But the work to find survivors quickly resumed. Mexico's Navy said Friday that 115 people have been found alive by rescuers in Mexico City. Mexico said 1,300 of its Marines have been deployed to help, and volunteers, aid workers, officials have traveled from all over the world to Mexico to help with the recovery effort. The magnitude 7.1 earthquake struck around 2:15 p.m. and the epicenter was in the state of Puebla, southeast of Mexico City. The U.S. Geological Survey said it occurred on the anniversary of the country's deadliest earthquake that struck in 1985 and killed 9,500 people. Well, that's all for tonight's news, and have a good night.